welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me great pleasure to introduce Naila Mui, who is here visiting with us. And I will share that this woman has a great gift that she brings to humanity. Naila, share with us just a little bit about your background.
Yes, thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you for the opportunity to just come together and to be able to connect. And so, as you said, my name is Naila moo-eye-ed, and I work as a transformational consultant, coach, mystic, and artistpreneur. My fields of industry, if you will, they move through three different main sectors: education, psychology, and spirituality. And my all in all, my purpose and my calling is to facilitate clarity, purpose, and inspiration for people. And so, as I'm working as a coach or a consultant, what I'm really doing is helping people gain soul alignment and life fulfillment by going through 8 seed topics and helping them to access deeper and deeper depths of themselves and of their life, and an understanding of how to actually engage in life through deeper authenticity. I have written 3 books. I have 2 more coming out in 2023. And I basically have love every opportunity to really connect with people and to build and to share what's on my heart and soul, that might be a contribution, to others. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
And I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm sitting here, and the first question that comes to mind is, who is Naila from a little girl that grows up to want to be able to do all of the things that you bring to the table? Who is Naila when she was a little girl?
So as a little girl, I was the same as I am now. I remember like my first job, was ironing my dad's clothes. I remember getting like 25 cents for shirts and 50 cents for pants. So being an entrepreneur and doing a side what they call hustle or gig, and then having a paper route to babysitting. I remember getting on the radio with my dad. He listened to morning shows, and I would call in, 10 years old, call in with questions or comments, on the topics that the people were speaking on. I was always fascinated by, political and religious conversations. I was engaged in sports as a young person. My first sport that I played was double dutch. I actually competed in double dutch. Yeah. So as a little girl, I was very active in both intellectual, spiritual, and cultural ways. So yeah, pretty much a smaller version of what I do now.
I love this because well, first of all, I have to pause because when you said double dutch, you brought back memories, and I love double dutch. Oh my goodness, that just brings back memories of childhood. So fond and so much fun. Okay, so we have this wonderful child that is just open intellectually. She's engaged, family has her checking out different things such as the political awareness and everything, which I have to tell you, a lot of young people not necessarily are engaged where they would actually call in or check out political shows. So there's a couple of different avenues that you mentioned. You mentioned the education, the psychology, and the spirituality. And I want to know, what was it that shaped you? Let's start off with the spirituality. What was that walk, or what was that something that really engaged you?
So growing up in my home, I'm one of 7 children, and my dad was a community leader. He was an activist. I grew up Muslim. And so in my household, my dad was the imam, which, if you're not familiar, the imam is the head of the particular masjid. And so as the imam, he, married people. He taught Arabic classes. He, was the leader in the masjid. And so growing up in a household with someone who's a spiritual leader, that gave me, and I'm going to say as a Black man, he came up through, he was born in 1939, right? So he came up through all that entails,
Oh
the
yeah.
end of the Depression, in the war, and then through the Jim Crow, and whatnot. And so he took on that Black activist and that, need to really make sure that his children and his family didn't see themselves as less than. And so one of the things that I remember that was key, and I used to ask my dad, what's important to you that I take away from your philosophy, from your teaching? What would be the most important thing? And he said, to be a free thinker. And I remember that deeply because that was right on par with what I felt,
Yeah.
never wanting to be, have my mind and my thoughts dictated by someone else. And so coming up with my dad as an imam and my mom, she was a community leader as well, but in a different way. She was a community builder. She would gather community around her. She put on plays. She taught the young people, the youth in the community. And she was a master seamstress and a beautiful singer. And both of them were so multifaceted. They had artistry and they had intellectual pursuits. And so just coming up in my household, it was just natural to have a political conversation where it might not have, no, I won't say might, it wasn't so natural to have intimate or affectionate conversations, but it was very natural to have political, spiritual, and intellectual conversations.
Okay. Okay. That's wonderful. So that states a lot because that means that studies took place. So you called yourself a mystic. And so I want our audience to
Yes,
understand
ma'am.
the depth of what that mysticism means and what that is, if you don't mind
Mhm.
sharing.
No, not at all. I appreciate that. I appreciate the focus on that because for me, that would be the first focus of my life, my main foundation. And so when I say I'm a mystic, what that entails is one, being spiritually grounded in my life and all of my life coming out of my spirituality. So my spirituality isn't something that I go to when I'm having an issue or a problem or when I'm pleading for something from my creator, from God. My spirituality is the actual grounding and foundation of my life. And so when I say I'm a mystic, it's coming from one, having been one who has walked a process of initiation. And I know initiation is different for many people. And I won't share too deeply about initiation because initiation is a deeply sacred spiritual
Yes.
walk, right? For each person who walks through it. But one, someone who has been initiated into a deep foundation, a deep culture of spirituality in a particular path. Two, one who is living it. So it's not just something that I did way back when. I've been living it on a day to day basis in a deeply rooted way. And I study it. And when I say study, it's coming from the true sense of education, where there's a drawing out, not a stuffing in. So it's not I'm researching so that I can find something out. My study is my daily practice. My study is my daily walk. My study is my observation of life and making sense of it and knowing that I have the power and the say with my thought, my word, my action, my feelings. I create what my experience is. I draw to me who's in front of me through my vibration, through my consciousness. So as a mystic, I bring forth what I hold in thought. I bring forth what I am consciously, right?
Yes.
We are all bringing forth what we're holding in thought, but most people are not conscious of that. So
Yes.
I'm conscious of what I'm bringing forth. I'm conscious that I have a say in it. And then I also express it in artistic and intellectual ways, right? And I also do work of helping others to access themselves in a deeper way. So I think that's the threefold path of a mystic. One being the conscious co-creator, being aware of the universal laws that are at play, attending to them very intentionally and having them expressed in everything that I do, and also reaching in and helping other people to access that as well.
I love it because you're sitting here describing a mystic, and I have a great smile on my face because you just described what it is for me as being initiated as a grandmother elder. Okay, the same way, except that we walk parallel paths, and the title may be slightly different, but the acclamation of living and eating and breathing who you are and who I am is it's the same. It's absolutely the same. And I love this.
Yeah.
And I would like to invite you to share about the fact that when we walk this path on a spiritual path, although we may have been introduced, you might have been introduced through Muslim, with your family being Muslim, and the studies of that, but such that how you're able to meet people where they're at. Because people have this idea that if you come up with a certain religion, or if you come up with a certain way of life, that's it. You can't see any other way. There's only one way that you would ever be able to engage, and that would be someone who's fellow in that religion. But I know for a fact that you are able to meet and greet people anywhere that they're at in life, and whatever they've done in life, no matter what their background or studies or whatever the case may be. So share a little bit about that.
So I want to come back to that. First, just to add on another piece in the intoning of mysticism or mystic. And
Okay.
so being initiated into myself, being initiated into a deeper understanding of God, of life, walking the path of the initiate, which is simply for me, one with the intention to become self-realized, right? And so with that, there's an access and a light that begins to be emanated. That can be felt by people who you're interacting with, that can be felt by people. I'm also a poetic storyteller. And so I have a wonderful opportunity to bring forth, to transcribe energy into the form of poetry, or what I call poetic prayer. I liken myself to being a little bit of Khalil Gibran, a little Rumi mixed with Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, and Lauryn Hill,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Yeah.
so in my mysticism, I'm bringing through a lot of different energy, transcribing that into the word, and then being able to meet people where they are. How that's connected is because I'm not making it up. It's the energy that is being desired in that moment. And I reference it from a place of the best and highest good for all involved, right? And so whoever I'm sitting in front of, the conversation is going to be different because this interaction is different. And so whatever is being called forth is going to be based on our energetics, our intention, and our consciousness pulling down whatever's called for this moment, right? Sometimes people are like, well, you said this before. And I'm like, that may or may not be what I'm saying now, even though the basis of it is going to be still the same. Like the universal law is going to be the same, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But there may be a different application of it. There may be a different expression of it. So I'm able to meet people where they are because I'm tuned in, right? I'm tuned into the energy. I'm tuned into the moment. I'm tuned into what's being called for right now in this moment.
Yes, yes. And for those of you who are not familiar with the universal laws, I suggest you purchase the book of the Kybalion. That's Kybalion, the Kybalion, so that you can read about the universal laws. So this is absolutely wonderful. And I that self-realization is a deep, deep, deep walk inward first. And once you understand what you are dealing with inward, you'll realize that inward is the world and that everything that you're doing is a vibration out. And I want to highlight this because you talked about the vibration. One of the things that I love teaching is about the power of voice. But when people hear about the power of voice, they automatically assume, oh, how I'm presenting myself, how I'm speaking. But really, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the vibration that is brought forth because we are vibratory beings and because we are connected in a higher plane and we have the ability to transmute or transmit those sacred geometries through our speech, through what we're saying, is the attraction that we're talking about. Okay, so why don't you share just a little bit more? Because this is where I want the conversation to go. People need to hear this. They need to hear that,
Yes.
we take them through the tutorial of, if you shed everything, all of the roles that you are, and you come down and you're stripped to that vibratory being that you are, now you're finally looking at yourself in the mirror. And you should love what you see because it is naked. It doesn't have any of those defined roles, those defined human roles that we put on ourselves in order to work through what we have to do in humanity. But that there is such a deeper and higher plane when we're absent of those roles, and how we can bring forward our strength and our culpability when we are able to just look at ourselves in this manner. So if you have anything on
Yes.
your mind, just share your thoughts.
So definitely. So, and one thing I want to say is, you mentioned for them to read the Kabbalion for more information on the universal laws. And, I love the Kabbalion. And when I'm coaching with people, it's one of the first books that I recommend. Okay, read this in preparation, for our work. And I
Yeah.
have a discourse, on my YouTube, and on my Patreon, where every discourse I do, everything is grounded in universal law. That's one of the key seed topics, because in order to actually be able to assess your life in the right way, you have to have an understanding of universal law.
Right.
And one of the universal laws is the law of vibration, or the principle of vibration, right? And so when we're talking about that vibration and meeting people where they are, what we're talking about is really, there are different degrees of understanding. Like, we are all children of God. We are all come forth out of the mind of the Creator. Our degree of awareness is just different, right? And so we're unlocking different degrees of awareness, and based on different degrees of desire and willingness.
Yes.
And so out of that, you're going to get our different vibratory frequencies, right? And we all are emitting energy. And whether it is going to be of a higher vibration or a lower vibration, but we are, in order to be alive, in order to express, in order to have beingness, you have a vibratory frequency, right? And so that's going to be based on the thoughts that we're choosing. That's going to be based on where we choose to dwell in our life, right? And you mentioned sacred geometry, and I'm gonna wrap this back around. So I put up the flower life behind me right here.
That's right.
Right. Because our sacred geometry, the physical body, the physical body actually contains a lot of different sacred geometric shapes and energies. And so when we're looking at Dr. Emo's study of water, right, and how he really showed under the microscope the different shapes that water takes on depending on the thought that is expressed toward them, or the word that is expressed, it takes on a different pattern and shape. It's the same with our bodies. And that's why we get either health and wellness, or if there's sickness, decay happening. It's based on our vibratory frequency. It's based on the thoughts and words that we are living in, the consciousness that we're choosing to dwell in. And so with those universal laws, wrapping it all back up together, understanding of those really allows us to then go in, observe our life, to be able to take a look at what consciousness do I choose to dwell in? And that's going to change throughout the days and the weeks and whatnot. You might notice, well, most of the time, I'm in, a consciousness of, let's say, lack or limitation. There's sometimes I'm in a consciousness of abundance, or most of the time I'm in a consciousness of fear, or sometimes I'm in a consciousness of calm or peace, or sometimes I'm in a consciousness of wanting and trying to hustle, and because I think that I'm not, right? And
Mhm.
so really being able to understand that my consciousness is my currency, that my consciousness creates my reality, just understanding that fundamental universal law will then be able to impact the rest of our lives. And so I think it's very important for people to understand that they are vibratory beings, and
Yeah.
for them to understand that there are universal laws that are in operation, whether or not they are aware of it or not.
Right. And I'm going to just sidetrack back to a couple of things you said so that our studio audience who is listening will be able to pick up. If you're not sure about the doctor that Naila just quoted, that's Dr. Masaru Emoto. And you can read all about water through Dr. Masaru Emoto. And so the other piece of this that I just wanted to add to that is that if you want to understand the study of vibration, you can also check out cymatics, because cymatics is another way that vibration and frequency is studied. And you can see how it impacts liquid. You can see how it impacts, a lot of times it's done with sand, so that you can see the sacred geometric shapes, because every vibration that we emit actually creates a sacred geometric shape, hence sacred geometry. Okay, and we can go on from there. And I'm absolutely loving this, because the key thing that you hit on was the fact that when a person is speaking, okay, and with the understanding of Dr. Emoto's work, and I write about this in my book, this is why I'm so glad that you brought it up, that the fact that when we speak, that vibration actually hits water, because water records the vibration. So if you take the leap of understanding that if water can record vibration, and we're vibratory beings housed in this temple called the body, and that body is 65 to 70% water, then hence your body's water is recording your thoughts, your speak, everything, which is why as coaches and as counselors, the first thing we say is speak positively. Because that vibration of your thought, that vibration of your speech is being recorded constantly. So if you think about that pessimist who speaks negatively most of the time and looks at everything negatively first before it's proven in a more optimistic manner, that's what the waters of the body are recording. So I just wanted to make sure that we really drove in that point, because I think that it's key learnings here for people who are listening. So understanding that universal laws guide your life and your being, guide our life and our being. I'll just correct that, because I subscribe to the same thing, okay? 100%. I'm right there with you, especially in terms of polarity and everything else, right? Understanding that, how do you incorporate and work with assisting others, understanding the vibration that they're coming at or coming in with? Okay. And I know you understand where I'm going with this, coming in with, in order to assist them and to shift or lift them up.
And so I would say the way that I work with people, I don't have the intention to shift or lift them up. I work with them from their intention. So, yes, I'm going to draw in, because my focus for my life is ascension, right? Is
Yeah.
expansion, is realization. And so I'm going to draw forth to me people who are interested in that for themselves. But I'm working with them on whatever their intention is for themselves. And so while positive speaking is important, we have to remember that it is an effect, not the cause. And so our speaking is going to actually mirror our thought. And so my focus in my work is more on paying attention to what you're saying so that you know what you're actually thinking. So if you are actually being more pessimistic, if you are actually find yourself in conversations that are less than or what you would call petty, then that's how you know, okay, I need to address the thought that I am dwelling in, the frequency that I am reaching for. And so it's not so much about the affirmation of it as it is the belief system. And so my work is really going to go about tackling that underlying belief system, and then your words will reflect that, right?
Exactly.
And so as they're coming in, you know, we all attract ourselves because vibrations can't live in the same space if they are polar opposites, right? You can't have hot and cold right here, except for at the line where over in Brazil, where the water is warm on one side, but they don't mix, right?
Like a
And you
repelling
can see
magnet.
the delineation is right there. Yes. And so I'm going to attract people of my own vibration. But at the same time, we may not be at the same awareness level. And so what is going to happen is I'm going to be listening as they are talking and speaking about whatever they're seeing in their lives. And this is the importance of observation and assessment. It's like, what do you see in your relationships? What do you see in the work you're doing? What do you see in your community? What are you seeing, you know, across the board in your health, in your finances? So really doing a thorough assessment to understand the consciousness that you're living in. And then we can address the consciousness, right? And the speaking will just follow along because it is an effect. The health will follow along because it is an effect. The finances will follow along because they are an effect. The relationships will follow along because they are an effect. And so I really, all of my work starts with assessment and really allowing people to go deeper into understanding themselves, their lives, and how they find themselves where they find themselves.
And I love that because many coaches, that's the piece that they're missing. They don't know how to do the assessment. And as they're doing the assessment, if it's generic and outside of themselves, it's just not there. And the beauty of what you just shared is that for those people who don't really know it, what you just shared was the alchemy of behavior. How behavior would be mapped right straight to alchemy. You do the assessment, then you understand, you know, what it is that wants to be separated and wants to be worked on and wants to be shifted or changed, given by that particular client. And then they move it forward based on the work that they're willing to do. It's beautiful work. It's beautiful, beautiful work. So understanding that, talk to us a little bit about your artistic side, your poetic, you named it the poetic prayer, and that just piqued. Matter of fact, I'm going to put you on the spot. I would love for you to share maybe your favorite poem or your favorite artist, poetic artist that you tapped into. I love Lauryn Hill. I love Maya Angelou. I mean, you didn't name anyone that I wouldn't just like grab onto. So would you mind sharing with us a little bit of your favorite poem?
I don't have a favorite poem. You know, I don't have one that says, ooh, this is the one I like more than others. I have myself written over 250 pieces.
Wow.
And I like, everything is intuitive, everything is called for in the moment. So wherever I am, the moment will be speaking forth something, right? And so in that moment, that will be the favorite or whatnot. And it's going to be all different. What I do, like I just went to a conference in Atlanta this past weekend called the Generational Wealth Conference. And so there were a lot of different speakers, and I did some poetic storytelling at a reception Friday night. And the piece I did there was perfect for what that conversation was about. And it was about excellence. And it's called Supping at the Teat of Mediocrity. And so it spoke about coming away from mediocrity, not seeing ourselves as mediocre and really claiming our excellence. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I'm in a comedic journey, you know, if I'm going to Egypt and I am doing something there, it's going to be a totally different kind of piece. Where if I'm speaking to high school students about something, it's going to be totally different, right?
Right.
And so I would say my natural go-to or preference, I don't have one if I'm centered in the truth of who I am as a channel, right? Because it's not for me. It's for whoever is in front of me. It's for our relationship. It's for the moment. It's to uplift and to bring forth an energy that's being called for. So I would say, if you're feeling inspired and you want to hear something, tell me if there is a topic you want to hear on. And then I can speak, you know, I can read something that I have on a particular topic or subject, right? Or I can just listen and say, okay, here's one.
Well, I'm going to let you just listen in for
I'm always willing to
share. Because I'm loving this. And I'll just share a little story. So it's so funny. I remember when I was in high school, and I was always told that I could never be a writer. I had a guidance counselor tell me, "Oh, you should go to a remedial college, right? Because your writing is not good." And I bought that for a little while. You know, I was like, "Oh, I'm not a writer," you know. Hence, I just embarked on that mathematical side because I'm a problem solver. I love pulling things apart and putting things back together. Until, you know what, at some point, I don't remember when it was, but there was just this epiphany of, I can do this, I will do this, and I don't care what anyone has said. And I started writing different stories down and everything, and I ended up writing 2 books. But one of the things that I always found really, really phenomenal, I love the connection, which is that I could be asleep and I could wake up in the middle of the night and I could write down a full, complete poem or story, because it was channeling so clear. It was like somebody talking to me, and I'm just writing down the words. So I know that I have a handful of poems that were told to me from the other side. And I love that. And I guess I want to ask you, is that similar to what some of your experiences might be as you channel through the poetry, or how is it for you?
So for me, when I am transcribing energy, I wouldn't reference it as from the other side per se, or from, so I know that there's a lot of different conversation about channeling, right? Mm-hmm. And so in one of my books that I've done, I speak about being a channel, not as I'm bringing through a different entity or a separate energy, but it's just bringing through energy. And so for me, there'll just be something in the moment that is being spoken energetically, that I get the gift and honor of giving expression through words and through energy, right? Because even as I'm delivering it, there's energy still coming off, right? There's still energy coming through. And the words, I'll do this piece. I have this piece called The Doorway. There are 2 pieces that just popped into mind as we're having this conversation. One is called I Am Not a Performer, and then another is called Doorway, right? Okay. And so I can read those because they capture exactly what we're saying. And so as a transcriber of energy, it is really key how I listen, right? And what I'm tuned into, because that in itself, whatever I'm tuned into, is going to be what comes through.
Right.
And so, go ahead.
Well, I want you to do the pieces, but I will say that I have actually experienced both. I've experienced when it's coming through me. There's a difference between when it's coming through me and it's being told to me. And I've experienced both. I've experienced writing a poem down and that's why I say the other side, because it's being told to me. And I'm literally writing down the words. And it's like somebody's story wasn't told. And I was open enough to be able to share that story on their behalf. And I wrote it down. But then there's other stories that come through me, such that I am feeling such bliss in that realm of the universe. And that which wants to come through comes through, and it just comes through in the most beautiful of ways. And it's loving, I just like it's indescribable to me. It's just like it's just there, you know. So
I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I open
And
my
I
heart
think
to it.
that as many people as there are as many ways of reception. And I don't, so I know for myself receiving it, I don't, I'm not familiar with it feeling as though it's somebody else's story, or a separate energy, or it just feels like energy to be shared and given. And even when I'm commissioned often to write poetry. I've written poetry for other people, for weddings, for funerals, for birthdays, for baby showers, for graduations, for organizations, for their mission and whatnot. And even in then, it doesn't feel like it's an energy that I get to tune into, that wants to be expressed through me and shared with others. And so, and it's an honor. It is a true honor to be able to do it. So I'll share the one called Not a Performer, and then I'll share the one called Doorway. And they speak to what we're speaking about. All right, so I always take a breath to breathe in, to open up, and to be more receptive for the energy that is available right now, not for the energy that I remember when I wrote it, not for the energy that came through any other time that I gave it, but for the energy that is available right now. And so here we are. I am not a performer. I am not here simply to entertain and amuse you. I am here to inspire and infuse, to activate and ignite the seed within you that was planted at the moment of conception, the immaculate conception as seen by the divine, from Alpha to Omega and known as all good. What I offer is wrapped in the totality of what I speak. It is not simply a word or a thought, but a vibration release, expressed through my being. Yet and still, vibration is thought. What lies beyond, extending from the active streaming, the effortless existence of life of which I speak. Clear your mind and open your heart that you might hear me. I am not a performer. I am not here simply to entertain and amuse you. I am here to inspire and infuse, to activate and ignite the life that is you. That's that piece.
Beautiful. I love it. So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and it's just a pleasure, for me to offer, poetic prayer, poetic storytelling all the time. And earlier you asked, do I have a favorite poet? And so I don't have a favorite poet either, but I would say, like those names that I mentioned earlier, I think that all of them together would be what I would say is my favorite dwelling place, where you have that roomy, that deep mystic tradition of poetic storytelling. And then you have Khalil Gibran, like wonderful. Then
Yeah.
you have that Maya Angelou, right? So, and then that Nikki Giovanni and then Lauryn Hill. And so we have the deep mystical tradition wrapped in the cultural tradition of Maya and the urban essence of Nikki and Lauren, and
Yes.
you will feel a little bit of what I bring.
I'm feeling it.
Love it. All right, so here we go. Doorway. What I have to offer is not found in these words that I am saying. These words are but a doorway. And if I will but step through them, I will be a blessing. You see, the expression is not the cause, it is the effect. The substance and sustenance I am is not dependent upon my articulations. So as I stand here before you, expounding upon that which flows as me, we are asked not to get caught up in the temporal, but use it as a tool that can guide to the eternal. We are invited into a dimension a little more subtle, reaching beyond the physical plane, accessing the astral and etheric fields, moving through and resting in the causal realm on our way back to source. Though we really never left, our awareness was simply focused on the illusion of separateness. The all that is all that I am. And as I seek me first the kingdom, all the delights of being are simply unfolding before right seeing. While caught up in the illusion, we seek after treasures and cast pearls before swine. But when we lay down our plight and surrender, we can see what's next. Oh, but we can't get caught up in what's next. But we can see what is now. And I acknowledge what is now as the perfect creation of God. And I simply allow. I surrender. Peace.
That was powerful. That was powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. What a gift you are to humanity and to this world. My goodness. Okay, so here's the deal. I don't even want to let you go. And there is much more conversation to be had. So I want to invite you back. I would love to do a part 2 and even a part 3 if needed. I want this to unveil naturally and not rushed. And so would you do us the honors of coming back?
Yes, yes, for sure. That would be my pleasure and
Oh,
in my honor. Yeah.
so what an honor it is to have you here. What an honor it is for you to have shared your definitive gifts. And I say that with a plural and not just a singular. And still more to come because we want to learn more about your books. And I want to make sure that I capture all of your information. So we will put it in the description field here so that you can get contacted. But if you would just share
Yeah,
how you could be reached, if for
definitely.
coaching or for your services.
Yes, definitely. So you can reach me on my website, www.divinevariations.com, or on Linktree at Divine Variations, or on Instagram at Divine Variations, or on YouTube. So across all platforms at Divine Variations is the best way to reach me. And I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, to the audience, what an honor it is for me to have Naila here. Thank you so, so much. I'm excited to have you back. I want to continue this conversation. And I don't even want to say goodbye, but just thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time.